Well, as we were just reporting, President Obama has overturned a ban on the use of taxpayers' money to fund embryonic stem cell research. Mr. Obama said the time had come to end what he called a false choice between sound science and moral values. Well, we can discuss this with two people in the United States who have strong views on the issue. In our Washington studio is Dr. Al Tasharo, a professor in law and bioethics from Wisconsin University. And in our studio at the United Nations is Wendy Wright from the organization Concerned Women for America. Thank you both very much for joining us. If I could start with you, actually, Dr. Al Tasharo, how much difference is this going to make in practice? Because stem cell research wasn't banned before, it's just that it couldn't get federal funding. Private money was okay.
That is true, but it's important to understand that federal money dwarfs the scale of private funding in the United States, and also that for the last 8 years, scientists have been forced to pay for twice the amount of equipment, twice the amount of laboratory space, twice the number of personnel, in order to completely separate their federally funded research from any research that's been privately funded using embryonic stem cells. It was a redundancy that was expensive and wasteful.
So how much difference do you think this will make?
It's tremendous. For one thing, it's the straight funding that will be available to expand this science and let us really understand which kinds of stem cells work best for which applications. But for another, it's going to solve the pipeline problem in the United States. We've had almost 30 years of federal absence in the area of research that remotely touches on the question of embryos and their moral status. And so we have very few scientists who have been willing to risk their careers on a field where it might be impossible to get funding. We don't have the kind of deep bench of talented scientists in their graduate school and postdoctoral years that will then begin to move into the field. That can now begin to change, and younger scientists can move with confidence in a field where grants will be available to do good work.
Okay, well, let's bring in Wendy Wright. What do you think about the prospect of stem cell research becoming much more common in the United States and getting much more funding?
Millions of dollars has already been spent on embryonic stem cell research in states like California and in England, and it's been an abject failure. Just recently, a report came from a boy who had been injected with embryonic stem cells, and the result was brain and spinal tumors. That is the same kind of result that's happened in animals. Now, contrast that with the alternate methods. Adult stem cells have had more than just promise. They're already treating people. There's been great success in trials with juvenile diabetes, Parkinson's, spinal cord injury, autoimmune diseases. And so, yes, it's true. There'll be much more funding now for embryonic stem cell research, which has proven to be not only a failure, but quite damaging to the recipients of the stem cells. But it also means that there will be a pipeline of money. When federal funding gets involved, it's a spigot that once it's turned on, it's never turned off, even if the project is proven to be a failure.
Are you opposed solely on the grounds that you think it hasn't worked, or is there's presumably a moral element to your concerns as well?
I think the moral goes hand in hand with the failure, that it seems to hold true. The moral way of doing something is also the healthiest and most successful way of doing something. And so it should be no surprise that an immoral scientific endeavor, that of killing small human beings to obtain their parts, that being the stem cells, has ended up having unhealthy results.
They're just cells at that stage, just a few cells. To describe them as human beings is very emotive.
But they are human beings. It's a distinct human being with different DNA, different genetics than the person who produced the sperm and the egg. So it's what you and I look like, and the number of cells that we had at that time and that stage of our life.
Okay, well, there's a lot to put back to Dr. Al Tasharo from what you're saying there. First of all, Dr. Tasharo, on the moral grounds, can you ever divorce science and ethics, morals, which is what President Obama seems to be saying he thinks is possible?
No, I don't think that's actually what our president is saying, if I may disagree a little. He is saying that good ethics begins with good facts, and on this score I think I really need to correct some of the statements that were just made. We have not had abject failures of embryonic stem cell research in the United States. We've never had a chance to test it. The very first clinical trial was only approved by the FDA in January for the treatment of new spinal cord injuries. The experiment that was referred to just a moment ago was an irresponsible experiment that was not done in any fashion related to embryonic stem cell research. This was a rogue doctor, and there are many of them that are selling false hope on internet sites, who injected raw material in massive amounts into random parts of a poor child's brain. It's no surprise that the child got sick. Any kind of material would have made him sick. The second is that we know that there are many things you can use adult stem cells for. Mostly what you can use them for is to make more of the same. That is, a blood adult stem cell can be used for blood-related diseases. The trick that everybody's looking for in regenerative medicine is to find cells that are flexible enough, plastic enough, that they can be used to repair any kind of tissue. And that's been the possibility that embryonic stem cells hold for us, and maybe now, possibly, newer methods that would allow us to convert ordinary body cells into cells that resemble embryonic stem cells.
Yes, I mean, there has
Once
been
we
new
know,
research.
if I may just very quickly, if we may just understand what is really possible, we may begin to then ask, what are the most important kinds of research to do for which applications? And then we can ask, are we willing to do that kind of work? Are the successes, are the promise sufficient to overcome our hesitations? But we must start with accurate facts.
All right,
and that's what the
just time for one final thought from Wendy Wright. I mean, with the prize being, scientists claim, potentially cures for all manner of diseases, do you not think that that overrides the concerns about taking the stem cells from embryos at such an early stage that the scientists are talking about?
Well, like I said, the successes are already happening with adult stem cells. I do need to correct something that Alto said. It's not true that the stem cells taken from blood can only be used to treat blood kinds of diseases. And that's been proven out with there's 73 different kinds of diseases and disabilities that have been treated with adult stem cells. The adult stem cells, the scientific breakthrough of the year, according to Science magazine, which is the iPS cells, they're more efficient, they're more effective, and they're already treating patients. Embryonic stem cells is a Luddite, outdated method. But really the goal here, it seems, for those who are advocates for funding of embryonic stem cell research is to break down the moral barriers to allow for scientists to manipulate human life. And that's the real danger that we face.
Okay, we're out of time, but it's been good to hear the views from both of you. Wendy Wright from Concerned Women for America, and Dr. Al Tasharo. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.